What's going on, everyone? So the Toronto Raptors have thrown their hat in the ring in the Jimmy Butler saga. Now, it's not for Jimmy Butler. They just want to be the third or the fourth team in whatever type of move, whatever type of trade, whatever type of deal, if one even gets done for Jimmy Butler. I still think he's more likely than not probably staying in Miami. It's getting bad. It's getting toxic. I mean, both sides really need the divorce. Miami needs to get off of Jimmy at this point for essentially whatever you have to do. Obviously, you don't want to take on bad salaries or you don't want to ruin your future by getting off of Jimmy. But, it's getting to the point where you just, keep him at home. And, there's even reports that, they didn't really even want him to come back or anything like that. So, to me, it's like if you're the Heat, I do think that there is kind of heat on you to go and make a move and unload Jimmy Butler in some capacity. But whatever type of trade that involves Jimmy Butler is more likely than not going to involve a third, maybe even fourth team to get completed, to get done. Right? Now, the reason I say most likely is because, if they end up trading him to a bad team or something like that has salary, then maybe you won't. But he also is going to have the ability to, veto trades and do all these things. Not veto in the sense of like a Bradley Beal where he has a no trade clause, but in the sense of hey, if you trade, he's already done it, right? Memphis was willing to trade for him and he was like, hey, if you trade for me, I'm not staying with you. Don't trade for me. So he has the power to kind of veto these trades as we've already seen. But there's talks and buzz about a Milwaukee trade, which I actually do think makes a lot of sense for him. It's just, does he want to go to a small market? Phoenix, I do think makes some sense. I still don't know necessarily if they'd be a title contender. I still think they have a lot of flaws, but I like Jimmy Butler alongside Bradley Beal Devin Booker and Kevin Durant more than I like him, that version with Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant, right? And also supposedly Jimmy Butler would rather be kind of a third option behind those two than Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero. Reports came out that, Miami has kind of made this shift to Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo being their 1 and 2 guys, and Jimmy Butler's kind of fallen to the wayside a little bit here as the third guy. Jimmy Butler's looking at it as I'm better than both of these guys, right? I like these guys, I love these guys, but if I'm going to be a third option, I might as well be a third option for two of the best guys in the league, right? And I do understand that. I do get that justification, right? If you're Jimmy, because you're just I'm being the third guy on a team that I'm the best player on, right? It doesn't sit well. Where Kevin Durant, it's no, Jimmy could probably look at it and go yeah, KD, all time great, right? Devin Booker, very good young, right? Top 20, 25 player, right? So I think that there's that justification, right? So. The thing is, though, is I still don't know if they're going to be able to find that trade and get that trade done. But the fact that you have a team like Toronto that's raising their hand and going hey, we'll get involved, we'll be that facilitator because it's free assets, right? And if you're a team like Toronto, you're not going to be good, you're not winning championships, you're not doing anything for another 3+ years. So they're looking at it as hey, why not? Hey, if we can get some assets, we'll take on some salary, we'll take on some guys. We're not going to do it for fun, right? You got to get some compensation in the mix of it, right? You got to get some, some seconds or something like that. But hey, if you guys are willing to work it out, let's make it happen, right? If you guys are willing to find a path to this, let's do it, right? So I do think that there will be other teams, right? Especially coming into this trade deadline, I wouldn't be shocked if there's at least a handful of teams. Think of all the bad teams that are going to be willing to be the middleman, right? Because most of these teams aren't going to be anything for 3, 4, 5 years, right? So even if you took on long-term salary, it's okay, you're not going to go from worst team in the league to best team in 2 years, right? Unless you have some drastic turnover, one of your guys becomes, a super duper star, which, and then at that point you figure it out, right? But it's just, it makes sense if you're some of these teams to try to hey man, we look at how much more value there is on these draft picks now, right? Guys aren't going for firsts anymore. Guys are going for seconds. Teams are very reluctant to trade first. There are numerous reports that are there's probably not going to be a lot of firsts traded in this upcoming trade deadline. Most of these guys you're seeing, all these teams we want first for everybody. And now you're already seeing guys like Nick Richards going, All right, you're seeing Dorian Finney-Smith. You're seeing Dennis Schroeder. Like, you're seeing all these guys that now are, going for seconds. And you're seeing guys like Nikola Vucevic, who on any other season probably would go for a first. You're seeing guys like Brandon Ingram, Jimmy Butler, right? Like these guys who really could elevate some of these teams. Teams don't even want to touch. Sorry. But you don't think Jimmy Butler would make some of these teams better? Like, right? Like, you don't think Jimmy Butler would make some of these teams like a title, especially for the price that you might be able to get him for? Right? But teams are like, I don't want to. Last thing I want them to do is opt into that $50 million, and now we're stuck. And if it doesn't work, teams aren't willing to gamble anymore. Teams aren't willing to take that chance, and you can't justify it like you could have before, right? If this new CBA didn't exist, Jimmy Butler would already be on the Suns, without a doubt in my mind. He'd already be a Phoenix Sun, because Phoenix instead they would have been like, okay, you don't want Bradley Beal, that's fine. And Matt Ashbia would have said, trade everyone else and go get Bradley Beal or Devin Booker or Jimmy Butler. There we go. And get this done, right? And then they would have just ran with Jimmy Butler, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker. Right? Like, that's just what you would have had, this like insane super duper team on paper. And they probably would have been terrible. But like you would have had just this like insane roster on paper, right? And that's probably how it would have went. But because of this new CBA, there's all these restrictions. I mean, the Phoenix Suns are supposedly willing or mulling over giving up their last tradable first to go get Jimmy Butler. They just traded like everything to go get Bradley Beal. Right now, they're going to give up another first and a Bradley Beal deal to go and get Jimmy Butler. It's just, again, it's incompetence. But that's the thing, is that like there's teams that are looking at that and going like, it'd be nice, a Phoenix Suns first. Hey, that first might be the number one pick in the draft in a couple years, right? 2031. Like, they're probably going to be awful by that point, right? And they're going to have no way out, And then you also have, a team like, most of these teams, Wizards, stuff like that. They're like, man, if we can get a couple seconds for taking on a guy or a young guy or something like that, or Miami's got several young guys. It's like, hey, can we get him or hey, we'll take a Ryan Dunn if you want to facilitate this trade. We'll just absorb him, right? We'll just take on his contract, right? Like whatever, right? And no, I could see that kind of being a thing, but it's gonna be interesting to see how this all plays out. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you think that there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to kind of be the middlemen, that are willing to kind of get in the thick of it, get in the mix to kind of facilitate some of these trades? Do you think like, teams should just like let them figure it out, right? Like, do you want your team to get in the middle? If you have a favorite team, do you want them to kind of get in the mix and maybe snag a couple guys here and there? However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it out of the way. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.